All right, we finally made it. This is the party episode. Queer as Folk, it's a gay show, and so you gotta have a party. You gotta have a party, and you know what it means when you have a party with a bunch of gay people? Poppers and party poppers. Oh, and an old guy's piss.
As promised, as I promised in the last episode, I'm wearing a party hat for this episode, and I do hope you can all hear it in my voice that I've got an annoying piece of string right underneath my chin, and it's making me so very happy and party-full and glee and various other adjectives.
Yeah, and I hope that you can hear in my voice that I've got one of those things in my mouth. What are those things called that you blow and they uncurl?
I have no idea. Literally no clue what that's called.
What are they called? We just assumed they had a name, but didn't bother to ask. Oh my god,
I want to say a blower, but that just sounds really inappropriate.
A sort of whistle, it's because it makes a kind of kazoo sound, but it's aluminium or foil kazoo, I guess.
I just have memories of people you're supposed to blow out, but people who would just like breathe in and out, so it would go. I mean, so that's a horrible noise to hear on a podcast, but when it would imitate someone's breathing, like they were on an airplane breathing into an airplane bag.
Wow.
Very quickly.
Well, anyway, as always, you are joined by the wonderful Louis Davies and the amazing Zac Copeland-Green, and today we're taking you through the next episode of Russell T Davies' breakout hit, Queer as Folk.
It's episode 7 of the show, but not episode 7 of the podcast. It is episode
5
of the podcast. Yeah. Louis, did you get up to anything interesting this week?
Actually, yesterday I went on a scavenger hunt around London.
Oh, how does that work? Tell me about that.
So basically, for every tube station in Zone 1, a challenge was assigned to it. And so what we would have to do is we'd have to go to a tube station, photograph ourselves in front of a tube station to show we were there, then complete the challenge, then send proof that we had done the challenge, and then we could claim the station. But if we got 2 stations adjacent to another team station, we could go to their station and try and battle them for the station by competing in a challenge. It was heavily inspired by the YouTube show Jetlag the Game. Have you heard of Jetlag the Game, Zac?
No, I have not.
Oh, you are missing out. It is...
I will Google it immediately.
I am so obsessed with it that I went to London to pretend to do it. Like, that's...
Yeah, no, I gathered.
You done anything fun?
Not particularly. I mean, I've been quite ill since we last recorded. I had tonsillitis, so, the fun thing was recovering from tonsillitis. And I am currently spending the weekend in the south of England, which is a phenomenal experience. I don't understand anything anyone says. That's a lie, I do. The Berkshire accent isn't ridiculously offensive to mine ears.
Is the Berkshire accent just like the kind of regular Southeast England accent, or do they have like a special little spin on it?
There's a lot of farmers round where I am currently. I also don't know what the listener's view on this is, because obviously I am a northerner, but I don't really have a northern accent, so I suppose everyone just sounds normal around here to me. I don't know, do you think I have a northern accent?
I think you have a slightly northern accent.
Okay, because I definitely don't sound like Nathan in Queer as Folk has, to me, that's at the peak of the Mancunian accent. Sometimes he says things, and my accent is not like that.
Does your accent change depending on who you're talking to? Because I know some people for whom that's a thing.
I think people have said that to me, and I'm not entirely sure, because every time I'm up north, when I'm at home, so many people say to me I sound really southern. But then when I'm in London or within the south, people say to me, you sound so northern. And then when I'm in the Midlands, people are just confused by me.
I mean, I think generally the Midlands is a bit of a dead zone for good accents, Once you get the other side of the Midlands, you're back to some nice accents. I think Manchester, lovely.
I'd be very skeptical.
Yorkshire, lovely.
Be very skeptical.
Liverpool, passable.
I'm not going to go on a podcast and publicly denounce any particular accent opinions. Everyone has a wonderful accent,
Okay, I think one of my family members lives in the West Midlands area, so...
Whatever you say. Shall we talk a bit about Queer as Folk episode 7?
Yes, so the episode is called 30. That's its name. Although it's weird because I think IMDb has different names. And for that one, this might just be called The Party, or maybe it's just called Episode 7, and this doesn't have a name as some of the episodes do. It's really weird. Only Wikipedia, it seems to like actually have an idea of what the names are and isn't just guessing. So we're going off the Wikipedia names.
So I've noticed this as well, because I've been watching it on Channel 4, but then as I've been running our social media, I've been having to record and cut bits of the show for our reels. And I'm using a website that has, again, completely different names that are completely out there. So, for instance, this episode is called That's What Friends Are For. The episode where it's Phil's funeral is called Death and Remembrance. The previous episode 6, which we talked about last time, is called Married, ... with children. Episode 1 is called Meeting People is Easy. It's so strange. I don't know what was going on in the late 90s.
Yeah, no clue. But basically, so what we're going to call this is the party episode, because that's what happens.
The party episode.
We start off with Vince and Cameron rocking up to Stuart's place. And it's weird because Vince just keeps repeating, "Oh my God, oh my God." And then you realise he's practicing being surprised.
Because he's doing that sort of actor's thing where he's putting a slightly different bit of emphasis on... there's only 3 syllables, so you would have thought there's not that much you could do with it.
I feel like you can do like, "Oh my God," or "Oh my God," but like even "Oh my God" sounds weird. So there's only really 2 options there.
He does sound a bit odd when he's doing it, I won't lie. But Cameron, we get a proper sense, because we've had the conversation in the previous episode where Stuart asked Cameron what they're going to do for Vince's birthday. And here, already setting the tone for what the role that Cameron's going to play in this episode, he thinks that the party should have been held at his place. And we're reminded that one of the main tensions we've got as we near the end of this series is Cameron and Stuart. They do not like each other.
No. They've forged a temporary truce for this night.
For sake of Vince.
For sake of Vince, yeah. Cameron even says he's annoyed they couldn't use his house. But, Stuart has a massive flat.
He does.
With a vending machine in it.
Vending machine.
And a sculpture of a Millennium Dome. And that's probably not there anymore. But
although
it's always in my heart.
I did notice the cactus that forms the centerpiece of that sculpture in episode 1 is very prominent towards the second half of this episode, post-party. I saw that cactus, Louis, and I thought of you.
Thank you.
Stuart opens the door, and he pretends to be angry, saying, because Cameron and Vince are like, we just were in the area, we thought we'd pop round to say hi. And Stuart's like, "You can't stay long, I'm busy." And then he opens the door, and it turns out it's not he who's busy, it's the party that's busy and full of lots and lots and lots of people, because it's a surprise party. Way
we get Vince saying, "Oh my God," and like we find out which take he decided to use. Basically, like the episode could have started in the party, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Could start him walking in, party, "Oh my God," and like not even having any shots of the corridor outside.
It gives you that sense of the politics about this episode, because you immediately get this sort of exchange between Stuart and Cameron where Stuart realises that Vince knew all along.
Yeah.
And so you get that politics of them trying to pretend for Stuart's sake, but Stuart's seeing straight through that. I'm saying political. I mean political in like a social kind of way, because you know what I found?
Is this like the original meaning of the word in, I presume, Greek?
No, it comes from the Greek word polis, which means city-state. So it does.
Oh, okay.
Political does mean the management of a city, but I mean in the sense of, I've never been to a party where there hasn't been drama, because if you give a group of adults alcohol and make them spend the evening together, people are going to fall out.
I have been to a party where there was no drama. It was a wedding, and it was actually quite boring.
So exactly. So I think
I was like, I want something to kick off. Nothing huge, but I want there to be a little something to talk about, and there wasn't.
So straight away you're in a risky scenario. Things might kick off, particularly when you find that I was quite shocked. There's all sorts of people at this party, because Nathan is here with Donna and Daniel. And I'm like, of all the people Vince would invite, they're on the list. Very interesting.
Well, Vince didn't invite these people, though. Let's not forget that. The guest list was organised primarily by Stuart, and Cameron probably also had a say because of the truce, you know.
No, yes, of course.
But this is Stuart's party for Vince.
I just the fact that that Nathan is there, and Nathan has managed to drag along Donna and Daniel. Although I'm really glad Donna's there, because Donna looks so good. Donna's outfits in the last 2 episodes, she looks so good.
Yes, I noticed she's got the little fairy wings behind her.
And Daniel is when we first see Daniel, he's mean to Donna about her outfit. But I'm just like, that's horrible. We've seen throughout the series, it's Donna and Nathan are ride or die. But now Nathan is sort of partnering up with Daniel because we find out that they want to get a flat together when Nathan turns 16.
Yes, they're planning that. I think his mum is in the episode later, saying like, you know, what happens when he moves out at 16. I'll never see him again, and he's got a plan.
Do you know who else is at the party that made me go, oh my god, everyone's at this party? Alfred is at the party. He's an absolute mad lad, party animal, and he's only 6 months old.
Well, because Romy and Lance are at the party too.
Yes, they are.
Do you think Stuart had to invite her because of politics? Do you reckon?
That must have, yeah. Because I suppose when you think about the people that we've seen in Vince's circle, I suppose Romy, Lisa, and the rest of the lesbians are part of his social circle. I mean, we saw one of them read Vince's palm in episode 1, so that must be a sign of friendship, no?
They're good friends.
Although why Lance is there, why Lance could have just stayed home looking after the baby is a question, but then we see that question answered quickly because Lance and Romy have to take a photo together as part of the whole plan to prove that Lance and Romy's upcoming marriage is real. For the sake of the Home Office.
Yes, they're really getting into the fraud. I guess they're into that fraud.
They're really selling the story.
Yeah.
But Alfred's presence at the party, I laugh at the fact that there's a 6-month-old baby at this man's third job.
He's in like the cloakroom.
Yeah, he's guarding the cloaks. Which I'm going to be honest with you. When I was like 10. My granddad, well, he would invite me to his parties, and I would be the cloakroom attendant when I was 10 years old. So Alfred is clearly doing that, but obviously he had 9.5 years on me before when he started doing it. But I suppose Alfred is important to the story because he causes Vince to sort of reflect on his age, because we've already seen Stuart earlier in the series reflect on the fact that turning 30 is a massive sort of psychological toll. And Vince now he reflects on when they were at school and thinking that 20 was a million miles away, and how him and Stuart used to talk about getting a flat together. And that's what sort of causes Stuart to then offer to let Vince move in with him. And Vince's reaction is, well, what would Cameron say? And Stuart reveals to Vince that Cameron has bought Vince a car for his birthday, which Vince supposedly doesn't know.
Yeah, he just decides, okay, I'm going to spoil it. He's very open about what he's trying to do. You know, he's not hiding it at this point. And with some stuff that happens a bit later in the party, we're going to see that it's almost possibly self-sabotage. He almost wants to be the villain just so there isn't hope for him. A real sort of self-destructive kind of tendency here.
Because you said at the beginning of this episode that there's some kind of truce between Stuart and Cameron. And I didn't want to beef you about that, Louis. But I don't think Stuart is adhering to that truce at all.
Well, no, I would say the truce was up until the party starts, right?
Yeah.
The truce was planning the party, picking one location to have it in, you know, agreeing to not tell Vince. If he figures it out himself, that's something else. But, you know, agreeing not to tell Vince until the party started. And then the party's going, and now there's no reason to keep up the truce.
Because what then? Stuart's next move is crazy.
Yes.
Isn't it, though?
He kisses Vince.
He does. He tells Stuart Stuart tells Vince to run, as in to run away
Yeah.
from Cameron, then kisses on the lips.
He's saying, don't chain yourself down and all that stuff. And it is insane what he's doing.
What do we make of that statement? Him telling Vince to run? Because is that what Stuart does? Is Stuart running away from any kind of commitment?
Maybe he's avoiding.
Is he projecting onto Vince?
But he isn't running. He's staying quite still, I would say, even.
Yes. Okay. Interesting.
He's not moving forward.
He's definitely, I would say, stagnating is a word that comes to mind now at the end of the series. And Vince, ironically, he does run/walk away, but from Stuart and towards Cameron. The cloakroom is essentially it's see-through, so Cameron is able to see through the glass to see what's happening, and I'm very sure that Stuart is aware of this.
Yeah.
It's all for show.
It's for drama glass,
Yeah.
Or do you know, have you seen Boiling Point, the TV show?
I can tell you a funny story about this. I've seen the short film and I've seen the feature-length film. I have yet to see the TV show series, but the irony is my cousin's wife is in it. She's not an actor, she's a chef, and she sort of did a career pivot, and now she's a professional TV chef.
But when you say in it, is she a cooking consultant or does she play a chef in the show?
She's a background artist because apparently they couldn't afford to pay the actors to learn to cook / pay the insurance of getting them to actually cook on screen. So a lot of the cooking is done by a handful of real chefs, my cousin's wife being one of them.
Okay, as doubles, as hand doubles, kind of.
Hand doubles, and then also you can also see her face.
Okay, cool.
But no, I'm here admitting publicly that I have yet to see it.
Anyway, the kitchen has a massive window into it. Just reminds me of that, because then it means that when it kicks off, people can see what's happening in the kitchen. And this is like a kitchen because it's where shit is getting cooked up.
Let him cook, except don't let him cook. We cut now to Hazel.
Yeah, so because we're on the topic of this horrible love triangle, Nathan and Daniel are talking, and naturally they're also talking about this love triangle. Nathan tells Daniel that Vince pretends that it's Stuart when he's with Cameron. He just closes his eyes and pretends it's Stuart. The citation needed. Do you have a source?
I think Nathan chats shit. That's one of his defining character traits, is that he just thinks about things, kind of makes them up and says them as if they're facts.
Yeah, he likes to spread gossip. He's not worried about putting the toothpaste back in the tube,
I mean, not that I don't think I wouldn't say he is a barefaced well, actually, no. Previously in the series, I would have said he's a barefaced liar. But I think this is the kind of thing that...
He lies about his own situation.
I think this is the kind of thing that he could be the subject of gossip and say, oh, I bet this happens. But he doesn't say it as if I bet this happens. He says it as if it is fact.
Well, yeah, because he wants to be the expert in Stuartology,
He's got a degree in Stuartology from the University of Canal Street.
Canal Street Polytechnic.
We find then Hazel is making cocktails for people. Namely, she makes cocktails for Nathan and Daniel. Yes, do you know what the first cocktail was?
What was the first cocktail?
It was a Harvey Wallbanger.
Nice.
In my notes, you know what I have in this section? I have the words Harvey Wallbanger in capital letters, followed by a series of exclamation marks. Just because...
Wow, I don't think I've had that cocktail before. What is it?
I don't know. I don't actually know what a Harvey Wallbanger is. I just think of an episode of a certain science fiction television show, script edited by Russell T Davies, where the pun of a joke is David Tennant screaming the words Harvey Wallbanger. How is Harvey Wallbanger one word? And I'll leave it there because we're not discussing said science fiction television show. We're discussing Queer as Folk.
Okay.
But I thought it was worthwhile pointing out that reference.
Anyway, let's go on to the real cocktail.
The real cocktail.
The real Hazel special. This is not a cocktail you can get anywhere else. This is one of a kind, because this cocktail has a special ingredient. And what is the special ingredient?
It's Bernie's piss.
It's Bernard's piss. Specifically Bernard's. No one else's. Just like his piss. And at first I thought, is this a joke? Is this a joke because she wants to make Donna feel better about Nathan and Daniel being dismissive of her? Is this a bit of a joke from Hazel? But later on, she tells Bernard to refill the bucket, and it's like, oh, okay, no, so Bernard knows. Bernard is doing this. Bernard is providing the goods.
I mean, we should just, for context, because I feel like we've accepted very quickly that there's a bucket of Bernard's piss at this party. Because he does, when Vince comes in, when we first see him, he does like make a point that he's having to like collect samples of his piss for medical reasons, I believe. But he has got literally a massive red bucket that he's peeing into. Very bizarre. That then Hazel uses as part of her cocktail scenario. And I think we've glazed over the fact a little bit that I love the little bond that Donna and Hazel have when Donna is complaining about Nathan and Daniel and how Nathan, her supposed best friend, is being quite dismissive of her. Hazel stands up for her and makes a piss cocktail. And it's just so nice to see genuinely two of the best characters in the show, the two mothers, the literal mother, well, one of the literal mothers and the best figurative mother, combine forces and just get some beautiful screen time together.
Queens supporting queens.
Exactly. And whilst the other queens go off to dance to SOS, I did think that was quite funny. I've always thought that ABBA's SOS is such like an underrated song, but the way Daniel pulled Nathan to the dance floor when he heard it, I was like, okay, no. I can kind of agree with them there.
Yeah, you got to hand it to them on this occasion only.
Absolutely.
And now we get more drama. We've been talking about Alfred. We haven't been talking about Alfred's mother. How's that for a segue? So you mentioned that Lance and Romy are taking pictures to try and look like they've been together for a while and now they're getting married in order for Lance to stay in the UK. So they're taking pictures at this party as well. They want to get like a wedding, quite a small private wedding, just a registration office, and they don't want anyone gay to come because that would make it look gay. Lance said we don't want to look gay because then they might catch on. Do you think that's a justified fear, Zac?
Well, I think the way that it's targeted is towards the gays, as in the men, as opposed to the women who could pose as Romy's friends, because, well, they are her friends. But do I think it's justified? No, I think Lance was really quite mean and spiteful towards the gays. I think he was a little bit rude.
Yeah, I think you can have one gay. Like if it was just Stuart.
Yeah. I'm trying to put myself in their shoes and think about, I can imagine that Lance is very cautious about doing anything that might suggest that it's a fake marriage and that Romy's actually a lesbian.
Yeah.
Louis, I don't know if you've seen Fellow Travellers.
No, I haven't seen that one.
Ironically, I haven't seen Fellow Travellers either. I have seen a clip from one of the episodes where it is this couple and they're lesbians and they get investigated by the government, and the government basically come into their home, search their house from top to bottom, and one of them has to pretend that the other one is a tenant who lives in the kitchen on the floor. And they go into the bedroom and say, yeah, but your mattress, we've examined your mattress and it looks like two people sleep in your bed, but there's only two of you and you're both women, ergo we conclude that you're gay and we're going to prosecute you. And I can imagine, obviously, Fellow Travellers is set far earlier than the late 90s. But I do think maybe there is this fear that the Home Office is going to be really, what's the word I'm looking for, really vigorous with its investigation. So I can suppose there is that almost a justified fear that the Home Office are going to be invasive.
Because of this arguably justified fear, it turns out that Lance is sleeping in the same bed as Romy. They're doing all these things together, and it's meaning that Romy cannot spend as much time with Lisa.
I'm not entirely sure of whether or not it was cleared up if Lance was sleeping in the same bed as her, because Lisa says his stuff is in their bedroom, but I don't know if I think Stuart makes a joke about how he makes a joke to Lisa and basically says Lance is sleeping, as in sleeping with, as in having sex with.
I thought that it was having sex with was the joke, and then the reality is that they're in the same bed. But if it's just that his stuff is in the same bedroom,
I don't think Lisa answers that. That would be very weird if he's so paranoid about it that he's insisting he sleep in the same bed as her. And then I'd also...
Well, I don't know. Can they do DNA analysis on the bed?
Maybe.
If you're paranoid, then anything is possible. You know, how's that for an inspirational quote?
I do think it's very Romy as a character. I mean, we get the impression that Romy is a very good person for doing all of this, and I think we'll talk more about this in the next episode.
Yeah, no, we will. We will talk way more about it.
But if it's got to the point that Lance is sleeping in her bed in place of Lisa, I think Lisa and Romy should have had a very frank conversation.
Yeah.
What we do find out in this episode is that we may remember back in episode 2 or 3 when Stuart has to sign paperwork for life insurance, etc., etc. Turns out he never signed Alfred's birth certificate as the father, so Alfred legally doesn't have a declared father, and so it's revealed that Lance will adopt Alfred as his legal son after marrying Romy.
See, I think this is where it's like, this is going very far. Maybe it needs to go far to work, but it is going very far, and it does move almost into a bit of an existential thing, because not that Stuart has been particularly enthusiastic as a father, but I think the idea also of this becoming the status quo is quite scary to Stuart.
We'll leave the rest of that conversation for next time, because I think it'll be a very big talking point. I think we should briefly mention, because you mentioned it before, this is the point where Janice, Nathan's mum, turns up at the party. She doesn't come in because she thinks she would sort of make Nathan feel uncomfortable. But she gives Vince a gift, and my notes just say bless her. She gives Vince a gift and thanks him for looking after Nathan, even though he's done it quite begrudgingly. We've seen she's very grateful that Vince is almost there as something of a role model to Nathan. Not that I think he particularly is using it.
Yeah, Vince is like, I don't want to do the right thing because it is quite inconveniencing to me, and I never signed up for this, but I can't not do the right thing. That's sort of his kind of, and you appreciate that.
He's such a nice guy. And then Janice, as you said earlier, she takes that moment to be on the theme of birthday. She talks about how Nathan's 16th birthday is coming up and how legally he could piss off.
Is that still how it works to be 16?
I think the law has changed and you have far fewer rights. I mean, we get a point, I think it's in the next episode, where Nathan talks about how he can leave school at 16. You definitely can't leave full-time education at 16 anymore. You've got to stay in some form of education till 18, even if that's an apprenticeship or something. So Janice gives Vince a present, and on that note, it's present time, isn't it?
It's present time, yes. We get a nice present ceremony. So it starts with Alex's present, which is every episode of Saved by the Bell where one particular actor is topless. He says it took him 4 years to tape all of that. Presumably he was kind of watching episodes as they came out, and so his gift is just this compilation. He made a YouTube compilation, actor being topless for 15 minutes gay.
I think this whole sequence is great because they stop the entire party just to give Vince his presents. I mean, I've never, apart from at a 10-year-old's birthday party, I don't think I've ever seen anything so ceremonial before for gifts.
It is a ceremony, yeah.
And then, as teased at before, Cameron gives Vince a little box, and Vince goes, "Oh, you've already given me something," and Cameron goes, "That was to throw you off the scent."
Oh yes, it was a Doctor Who box set that he already owned,
and it's a set of keys, and there's a massive gasp. And I think this is such an odd thing. The entire apart from two people, everyone who's at the party goes outside to see the Mini, which I think is just so crazy, that herd mentality. And everyone's like, oh my God, it's great. Vince gets in, gives it a test drive.
Yeah.
And Daniel
drives off and is back out in a minute. He doesn't actually run away at this point.
No.
When I first watched it, I did think, is he running away? But then he's back, so he's not running away. It's fine.
Daniel slags off the car. He's like, oh, clapped out old banger. And I am a bit like, Daniel, who are you? Like, you are no one. Why are you at this party? Why are you being so rude? But I suppose that's why Nathan and Daniel are drawn to each other, because they are quite rude and unpleasant.
Yeah.
Alexander's commentary on that is they're basically married now.
What, Daniel and Nathan?
No, I think it's the idea that Cameron buying Vince a car is a level of presents that you buy for your spouse.
Oh, I didn't mention it before, but I want to say now that like throughout this whole time, Alex has been the DJ, and he goes on to be like the lead drag performer. As taking that kind of DJ role, I think Alex is the best character for it, because he brings a party. He's
such an MC kind of character. But as I implied, there are two people who didn't go outside to see the Mini, and that's Stuart, Well,
actually, there's three people.
Oh, yes, of course.
So one of them is Stuart. Take a wild guess who the other one is. That's right, it's Don. No, it's Nathan. And then Alfred is also there. He makes a baby noise at one point. We don't even see him. We just hear a baby noise just to remind us that he's also there.
I like the dynamic in the room, because the first thing we get is a shot of the camera looking through the blinds down on the commotion below. Then we see that it's Stuart by himself looking down. And then we see the camera shifting to Nathan watching Stuart. So there's a lot of watching going along. And then, as you say, you hear the baby noises. You get a real sense of Stuart's issue with Cameron and what's going on. So that's when he pulls out the big guns.
Yeah, because suddenly everyone's back in the flat. You know, everyone left the flat, everyone's back in the flat, proper herd mentality. And now it's time for it's sort of a bonus present. It's like the car, it feels like the car was supposed to be the last present. And then this is the encore. This is actually, there's another present. Because, so we hear that Cameron gave Vince a decoy present that was some Doctor Who to throw him off the scent of the car. And it turns out that Stuart also did that, because we think, or Vince thought that his present was just like organising the entire party. But actually, he also bought Vince a remote control K9.
And it's not just a remote control K9, because in the late 2000s, they sold little remote control K9s. This is, I actually think...
a 1-1 replica.
This is, I think, probably one of the original BBC props that they used for filming. So yeah, it's a 1-1 replica in the universe of Queer Folk. It's insane. And the way that this is introduced is you can tell that Stuart was not happy about Cameron's gift. He is using K9 when Vince walks through the door. So it's not like Vince doesn't get to open it. He walks through the door and K9 is sort of moving around, and he's so impressed. And you can tell on his face that that's the best present that he's got.
Yes.
And that's sort of Stuart saying to Cameron, look, I'm a better friend than you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Vince's love of Doctor Who was established in the first episode, and it'll be important in the last episode. You know, it is such a constant. Where if ever you're competing for Vince's favour, it's not that hard to figure out what you need to do. You just need to do the most impressive Doctor Who related thing possible.
And if you're Stuart, who has so much money and can afford to buy a literal 1-to-1 K9 replica with a really well functioning remote control, because apparently K9s had really bad remote control. And let's not dive too deep into that, because I feel a tangent coming along.
Do you know the bit where K9 runs into the sea? Actually, in Brighton. K9!
I can imagine that cost Stuart a lot of money. And so Cameron's response, he thought he had the most impressive present but he definitely feels overshadowed now. And so he goes, and there's this great bit where he goes to get a beer, and he opens the Budweiser so aggressively. And then the camera's outside, and a dark figure approaches. Who could this dark, mysterious figure be, Louis?
Oh God, it is the coming darkness, the beginning and the end, the person that walks in all our shadows, Rosalie.
Dun dun dun. She buzzes the intercom thing, and it's Bernie who answers it with "Come on in and get your cock out."
Yes, this is such a gay party. Yeah, and she's here, and like we wonder why is she here? Because Vince won't have said, "Oh, I'm doing a thing. You should come." So why is she here? And it's great because as she's coming up, we get an absolutely incredible drag performance from Alexander. It was like show tunes, but Spice Girls, right? Like it was
the Spice Girls album, Spice World, is the Spice Girls album that has, say, Spice Up Your Life. But the last song on the album was my favourite one. I had this when I was really young. The Lady is a Vamp is the 10th track on the Spice World album. And it sort of starts out as like a really sort of cabaret show tune, but then gets really quick afterwards. It's such a camp song. I love it.
Okay, so I was wondering if this was like some kind of remix, like a Neil Cicierega song. Do you know Neil Cicierega?
No.
Oh my God, he's made 4 albums. One is called Mouth Sounds, Mouth Silence, Mouth Moods, and Mouth Dreams, and they're all like mashups of pop songs. And a big part of it is that a lot of the mashups include Smash Mouth.
Oh, okay.
So that's your homework. That's your required reading.
For me or for the listener?
Both. If the listener is not familiar with Neil Cicierega, then...
No, this is actually The Lady is a Vamp from the Spice Girls' second album, Spice World.
Nice.
I never knew that picking up that album when in a charity shop at the age of 13 would give me such a musical education for my early 20s.
Yeah, I was never into Spice Girls, and it took me 19 years, so maybe it would have sped up the process a bit if
so we get Miss Alexander Savage, everyone's favourite drag queen, doing drag to the Spice Girls, and I think the comment is made, he's wearing Hazel's clothes, which is just such a great bit of fun, and that really camp scene is juxtaposed with these really ominous green shots of the lift coming up with mysterious Rosalie coming in it. It's like something out of a horror film at this point.
Yeah. Here's Rosalie.
I actually got that reference. I didn't laugh, but I got it.
That's like baseline reference. Like, I'm not a big horror fan either, so,
So she comes in and she spots... Vince spots Rosalie. And he goes into panic mode. He like kisses on the cheek and says, "Oh, should we go and get some food? Oh, there's so many people here. I don't know who half them are. Let's go and let's go and get some food somewhere. Let's leave now."
Yeah.
And then she reveals that it was Stuart that invited her, and Stuart who told her to come a bit later. And then Stuart appears and says, "Oh, Rosalie, come with me. Come and meet Cameron, Vince's long-term boyfriend." And then basically starts saying, yeah, they've been together for ages. Cameron says they shag like rabbits.
Which, I mean, they haven't been together for ages, right? Like,
no, he's playing it up.
Yeah.
To make...
I was just checking that I'm following the timeline of the show correctly, but, it's not particularly long since the last episode, and that's not particularly long since the episode before that. And at that point, that's basically when they started going out. So
He's playing it up to make Rosalie feel... Now, is he trying to make Rosalie feel uncomfortable? He's trying to...
Oh, I mean, yeah, uncomfortable, humiliated, deceived, betrayed, resentful.
I'm wondering about Stuart's motivation here, because Cameron is his antagonist. Because why would he want to hurt his best friend Vince?
Well, this is what I say about the question of whether this is actually all self-destructive, Maybe he just wants to tear things down. Maybe he doesn't care about breaking up Vince and Cameron. He just wants it to be that after the end of this evening, there's no ambiguity as to whether Vince and Cameron will stay together. After the end of this party, either they're together and they're away from him and he can stop worrying and just submit to the despair, or this will add too much pressure, and then they'll all split apart, and eventually Vince and Stuart will reconnect over time. It's quite a depraved plan, and you think that like he is, I would say it's certainly self-destructive, and he's wondering if maybe he can drag down Vince with him.
Certainly. And so Rosalie's response to all of this is she very quickly, she goes into the cloakroom. Vince tries to de-escalate the scenario, that's the word I'm looking for, and then Rosalie goes, actually I think I'll go. Vince is sort of chasing after Rosalie.
Yeah, she's in the lift, he's running down the stairs.
But even before that, there's a fantastic detail. Cameron tries to intercept Vince as he's chasing after Rosalie to try and de-escalate Vince, and Vince tells Cameron to fuck off. And then when they reach the end, when they reach the bottom, and this is it's an interesting conversation, because you think, who is in the wrong here? Because Rosalie blames Vince and says, you lied to me, you said girlfriend, do you all you and your friends laugh at me? And you kind of think, actually, you feel very sorry for her, and actually you kind of think, oh, Vince has been lying to her, even though the entire time you're on his side because you understand what it is to be in the closet and not be out. And then she says, you're a liar and a dirty little puff.
Yeah.
And at that point you go, okay, I'm kind of losing my respect for you, Rosalie, even though you...
No, yeah, it's funny. I think they're like, liar, that's valid, and Puff's like, okay, well, I guess I don't have to feel as much sympathy for you now. They do a similar thing to Lance in the next episode, but we'll get to that when we get to it.
Yeah. And this is where we go to an ad break. Although I will say at this point, I mean, it's been true throughout the entire series. I put in my notes, Murray Gold's soundtrack really slaps. It slaps so much with the sort of, his music to go to the ad break is great. Because there's not an awful lot of original soundtrack in the show, because there's a lot of actual disco. Disco's not the right word, but sort of like club music.
Yes.
In the show, because obviously a lot of the show takes place in nightclubs and parties. But then when we go to a break, there always is like that. I don't know how to describe it, because it's like a synthetic piano, dun, 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 but like not synthy. I don't know how to describe it. I'm not a musician.
Okay, yeah, I'll take you.
I'll get in touch with Murray Gold and I'll ask him how we describe his soundtrack for the show.
So back from the break, Stuart wakes up and the party's over. Everyone's gone and he's just in the flat. It's great. He eats some leftover cake, and it's so funny because this morning I had to have breakfast kind of quickly, and what I just had was some Barra Briff that my dad cooked, and like said, you can have some, and probably wasn't assuming I'd have it for breakfast, but sometimes you just want to have cake for breakfast, so I totally get it.
That's a great little Welsh drop in there to remind us all of your Welsh heritage.
Oh, yeah.
See what you did there.
It's a good cake. It's one of them cakes that's made of tea. I can't remember what. Oh, yeah, tea cake. There's a few different types. This is like the Welsh type. Mm-hmm. So I could just say it's a tea cake, but then you might think it's a Tunnocks tea cake, which is like marshmallow, which is completely different. Mm. It's weird that that's also called a tea cake. So this tea cake is the one that's actually made of tea and not one that goes with tea.
Be made with tea. Yeah. Then that is exactly what it is.
Sometimes it's fun to have cake for breakfast. So, I feel Stuart in this moment.
And sometimes it's because you have woken up after causing an absolute disaster and you feel shame, so you eat cake for breakfast. I think there's no in between. It's either a super fun, silly thing to do, or it's a really shaming thing to do.
Yeah.
So I hope, listener, when you have cake for breakfast, it's a fun, silly thing to do and that you enjoy it.
May all your cake for breakfasts be fun and silly.
But we do find someone else is in the... after he's eaten some cake and had a shower, as he's drying himself off, he finds Hazel has entered his flat. She's not tidying up, but she's sort of gathering all the presents that Vince left. And she sees Stuart naked and she just goes, I've seen bigger. And she carries up tidying, and she sort of says, I missed all the drama last night. I was too busy dancing. That should be the title of my autobiography. That's what Hazel says, not me. We haven't really had in the show a proper moment between Hazel and Stuart on their own, have we?
No, we haven't.
So this is where it all comes out, because when you have a close relationship with, say, your mum, which obviously is true of Vince, I personally find that you think your mum doesn't know you. You have your whole life, and sort of Vince has got, his cool, fun, sexy gay life with his best friend. But actually, it seems that Hazel Tyler knows everything, and sort of she tells Stuart, this is what I saw growing up about Vince telling me about the new boy at school and his obsession with him.
Some weeks he wouldn't talk about him at all, though.
Yeah. And how she saw Stuart leading Vince along for all these years, and how she, even though she's pretended and joked about, Cameron being the one for Vince, she knows that he won't stick around and there'll be a next Cameron. She doesn't put Stuart in his place, but she tells him how it is, and she kind of leaves him with that information. And then she says the keys are on the table, he doesn't want them back. I presume that's Vince's keys to Stuart's place. I presume that...
Yeah, like spare keys,
Which is it's an underplayed moment, but it's a really telling. It's like Vince doesn't want to be friends with him anymore.
I really appreciated that, because there's a Seinfeld episode about Jerry Seinfeld has Kramer's spare keys and Kramer has Jerry's spare keys, so they have their own spare keys. And because Kramer keeps bursting into Jerry's flat, he's like, you know what, I'm taking my spare keys back. And so then there's this whole chaos, because now he's trying to get George Costanza's spare keys and trying to do the swap there. But George already has like Elaine's spare keys. And it's like, spare keys are like a big deal, basically. I'm just saying I know they're a big deal because of a Seinfeld episode.
I have a thing to say about keys, but it's about keys. It's about the role of keys in Doctor Who. And I keep promising myself that this is not a Doctor Who podcast, so I will not go off on tangents about Doctor Who. And so instead, I'll comment on the fact that Vince is left playing with favourite Doctor Who character K9 in his apartment.
Yes.
Sorry, Stuart, not Vince.
Stuart, yeah, because that's within the text.
That's within the text.
I mean, when you say keys are important, do you just mean that the TARDIS has a key, or do you have something more insightful to say than that?
I've always thought that there's this important... You got me going. You asked me, Louis, so I will deliver.
Oh, yeah. I know what I'm doing.
There comes a point in a relationship where the Doctor gives a companion a key, and it's sort of saying, you're part of the TARDIS crew. I think I'm thinking of the 10th Doctor giving Martha and basically saying, you're no longer a passenger, you're a member of the crew. And I think what has always been underexplored is the fact that it's not just a key to the most powerful ship in the universe, it's a key to the Doctor's home. And it's basically this moment of saying, I trust you implicitly, you now have access to my house, to my home.
Yeah.
And I think it's always overplayed as, you're a crew of the most powerful ship in the universe, but no, it's sort of, I'm giving you access to my heart.
But Vince decides to pull a Martha and leave Stuart's TARDIS voluntarily.
Oh. And Stuart, unfortunately, the Titanic doesn't crash into his flat, so he's just left on his computer.
Yeah, it's just, we get a scene of just a bit of silence, basically, and until he gets a phone call, of course.
And we don't see who's on the other end of the phone at first. We just hear him say, "Fuck off," basically.
And then suddenly it turns out that it's important, and
he basically gets out and leaves. And it turns out it's Lisa, Romy's partner. I have to admit, at this point, I still hadn't clocked what her name was.
Yeah, no, neither had I. In the notes, I have put Romy's partner. I might just change that to Lisa. But yeah, it's Lisa, the solicitor. We remember she's a solicitor. This is important.
I think maybe we got ahead of ourselves a bit earlier talking about the Lance and Romy situation, because this is when we find out that Lance has moved in permanently. His things are in Romy's bedroom. No, I think we do find that out in the party. Oh, okay.
Or at least in the party. The party is definitely where we get the joke of, they're sleeping together or whatever.
Yes.
And the idea that, like, in the party, we know that they're taking the Home Office thing really seriously.
Yeah.
But this is where we learn that Lisa is not happy with it. This is where we finally get Lisa's side of the story. She's there too, and she's Romy's actual partner.
And we find out that she's been paying half the mortgage for 6 years. And this is where you kind of go, you're a solicitor, babes. I can't believe you didn't clock that she has had nothing in writing to say that she's paying half the mortgage.
Yeah, I was wondering, is it like dangerous to have something in writing, or
no?
Probably not, because I feel like it's legal to be a lesbian, and it's legal to own property with someone.
Exactly.
You can own property with a business partner, and not be in any kind of romantic or sexual relationship with them. So
I feel like maybe this stems from the fact that when you sort of sit down and write because basically you'd have to sit down and write a contract to basically say, yeah, I'm paying Romy money to pay for half the mortgage. In order to sit down and write a contract, you're basically saying, I don't trust you, and I think that maybe one day we'll split up and you will try and take the whole property, and that is essentially half of which is mine. And so maybe they spent 6 years just being like, oh, I trust you implicitly. Now the situation that you would have feared and hoped never happened has now kind of happened, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think as awkward as it is, this is why you kind of just bite the bullet and just be like, okay, let's just get something in writing, and then everything else we trust you implicitly. Also because, like, what's Lisa's, like, what does she own? Because she must then own some stuff herself. Or if they have like a joint bank account, and joint bank accounts can be cute because then you're working towards like a holiday together or something. That can be cute and not contractual or whatever, you know.
It does make me think she's claimed to be a very good solicitor before, and this is not the behaviour of a very good solicitor, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
To not manage her own personal affairs and such. I don't want to hate on Lisa, but I'm a little bit let down by her. But anyway, she's decided to be a vigilante because she's decided that things have gone too far, and so has basically decided that the best thing she can do is to take her love letters that she's sent, that Romy has sent to her, and let the Home Office see them in order to sort of out Romy to the Home Office.
Yeah, they're tied up in like a bundle of string, and I was wondering if they were ever going to get put in like an actual package to protect them, but they're always just in that quite like whimsical bundle of string.
Romy's like, Lisa's like, I can't send them, so you'll have to send them, Stuart. And obviously,
because she doesn't want Romy to hate her.
Yeah.
But someone has to send them, and so she wants Stuart to do it and take the blame because of Alfred. He's doing it because of Alfred, because he's the father, basically, and she wants that to be the narrative.
What's quite confusing is then Lisa says, you know, as a solicitor, I can tell you that Romy can't deny you access to Alfred because you're Alfred's father. But Lisa did say earlier in the episode that legally there's no father on Alfred's birth certificate. So surely there's a little bit of a problem there.
This idea of having things in writing, you know, she doesn't have a mortgage in writing, he doesn't have Alfred in writing. You know, the scene could have just been that she says that, well, because you're not in writing, this is also important for you. You know, she could have said that as a way to sort of try and persuade him. Or, oh, actually, no, because I think what it is if he does this and the reason is because he's the father, then it turns out that he's the father, and maybe that means that legally she can't stop him from seeing Alfred because he did this because he's a father. You know what I mean? Like, if he's doing it kind of adds evidence to the fact that he's a father, which makes it harder. I think that might be it. But if he does this, it sort of strengthens his case as, like, I'm the father, basically. The thing is, right, is that Law is finicky, quite famously. And I don't like finicky stuff. You don't like finicky stuff?
No, I'm much more interested in the character drama here. So it's simple enough to say he agrees, and I kind of, from what we've seen, I don't blame him because I do still think that Lance was a bit mean to him about the wedding earlier. So basically, he agrees to do it.
Yes, he's like, you know, Lance, he was a bit mean to me about the marriage situation, and so I think a sort of an equal retributive action of sort of taking justice into my own hands, an equal and opposite action to this would be to get him deported. That's definitely on the same level. Something else I really like about this is how Lisa talks to Stuart and mocks him. And it's not like in the second episode where they're having his balls in the vice and saying, like, you know, sign this life insurance contract. She is being a bit more, like, jokey with him and a bit more chummy, I guess. When she's talking about the legal stuff with Romy, Stuart is like, you know, oh, what about love? And then she says that, Oh, I'm just simplifying the story for my audience, which is a great dig at his obsession with hookups and not as much of a focus on love. And also the letters. He's wondering if he could like read them, and she says, "Oh no, you couldn't because it's joined up handwriting." And I like this kind of connection between Lisa and Stuart of like a sort of not so much a friendship, but certainly a mutual respect.
They have mutual interests, and the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Never was there a truer time. And so we cut to Stuart reading some of the letters, which he probably shouldn't be doing, because also I found this is absolutely hilarious, and I thought, of course, this is happening. Stuart doesn't clean his own flat. He has people. He has a load of cleaners come in and clean his flat for him.
There's so many there at once. It's like a big army. Like he wanted to get a lot of people in for an hour instead of one person in for a few hours, so he doesn't have to like interact with people.
And all of a sudden, there's a buzzing at the door, and turns out Nathan's come round.
It's interesting because basically from this point forwards, after the party, we don't see Vince or Cameron. Like they're gone from the episode. We're only ever looking at Stuart's perspective from this point on, because Nathan tells Stuart that, Vince and Cameron have been saying horrible things about you. They really hate you. I wanted to see if you're okay. That's probably true. Let's be honest. That's very believably true. Don't think that Nathan needs to exaggerate this one, considering what Stuart did. But we're in the same position of Stuart, which is hearing about it and wondering whether to let Nathan in.
That's such a good point, though. That's a really good observation.
You sound surprised.
No, never. Stuart's kind of like he doesn't want to see Nathan. Nathan asks him if he's all right, and I was like, that's quite wholesome that Nathan is ostensibly concerned about Stuart's welfare. And what it is Stuart ignores him, and then the camera reflects how Stuart looks at the letters, and then he has an idea.
He's got a plan. Because at first he's like, fuck off. And then he hears what Nathan has to say and, maybe mellows out a bit. And so I think the idea is that like sort of he realizes that Nathan can think that he's being let into the flat because he's said what he said, right? Nathan can think that he's coming into the flat because he's managed to convince Stuart to let him in. But Stuart is like, actually, I have a plan. And so this is great. When Nathan is in the lift, like Rosalie was, Stuart keeps pulling the door open a little bit on his floor, and because of safety, that makes the lift stop. So he keeps doing that, and the lift kind of keeps starting, so that he has more time to change his appearance, get ready, sit on the couch, look like he's watching TV, and not lying there depressed as Nathan comes up. And yeah, it's good because after this quite like this dip in the episode's ending, because we had a party and now we're hungover, and it's like, okay, no, hungover's over, we got some plot to do.
Stuart, he didn't just change clothes, he changes into kind of like, he takes his pants off, so he's just wearing his underwear, and then puts on like a tight black shirt. So he's in his sexy clothes, so that when Nathan looks in, I think he wants to seduce Nathan, because he knows how he can use Nathan. So it's what you said about us now following Stuart. I think we have a complex. We don't exactly feel completely sorry for Stuart, because he is to blame for the terrible things that he's done to his best friend. And now we see him try to manipulate this minor by using sex. And Nathan, what I will say is Nathan looks a bit visually older. He's got some good hair, but they end up playing ping pong, and Stuart tells Nathan everything. And Nathan is the one that suggests, basically they end up making out, and Nathan suggests, "Oh, I'll do it. I'll send the letters. And even if Romy thinks you asked me, I'll say that you didn't, and that I completely offered because I was concerned about Alfred.
Yes. Yes, is Stuart subtly planting the idea of sending in the letters into Nathan's mind, so that Nathan does it and takes the blame instead of Stuart. It's him planting the idea. It's just like that Christopher Nolan movie. Which one was it? Memento, because I cannot remember anyone's names.
And you think at this moment that Nathan has fallen right into Stuart's trap, and then Stuart starts to undress Nathan from the waist down, and then Nathan stops him and says, "Oh, I'm not doing this because I want to have sex with you. I want to do this because..." And he ends up saying, at the end, I says, "I'll not do it for a shag. I'll do it because I'm stupid and I sort of love you."
Yes.
And I gain a lot of respect, and we see the massive character journey.
Yeah.
That
and he also says that like Vince would stop him from doing this.
Yeah.
And the idea of this is Nathan and Stuart being devious. You know, that's what they have in common, and Vince is not devious. Vince would not get Lance deported, you know, just for, you know, someone else's partner and maybe their son, you know.
Yeah.
Also, I noticed when he's in the flat here, he's wearing a t-shirt that like says bitch on it.
Yes.
With like a woman with like a gun.
I remember that.
I know a lot of ink has been spilled about misogynistic gays, but I guess we're going to spill a little bit more just now.
we sort of, as we come to the end of this episode, we think Stuart and Nathan, they're getting on quite well. Nathan's doing Stuart a favour, and then Stuart, as Nathan is going down in the lift, opens the door and goes back inside, leaving Nathan hanging in the lift indefinitely. And you just think, yeah, Nathan was right. You are such a twat.
Yeah, he calls Stuart Jones. He calls him Stuart Jones, not Stuart Alan Jones, because I think Stuart Alan Jones is like makes him feel super adult and deified and sort of like an object of desire and infatuation. And Stuart Jones is just his name.
Yeah. So, yeah. Wow.
And so that is the ending of episode 7 of Queer as Folk. We're nearly at the series finale, although there are 2 episodes after that. But, you know, next week is going to be the ending of the original series 1. Series 2 is like 2 episodes, so I don't even think you should call it a series. It's just 2 specials.
It's kind of an appendix, because it was only supposed to be 1 series, and then it ended up being so popular that people wanted to see more of the characters. And I actually read something the other day that people are still interested in seeing these characters come back and petitioning Russell T Davies to do a sequel, like a mini sequel 25 years later.
Yeah, I mean, because I was thinking, because I would like to see, for example, Cucumber is a show about sort of gay life at this time where it felt like sort of queer people had like the most rights and the most security. And that's been degraded a bit since then. And so I would be very interested to see a program about queer life in the 2020s when things are not so end of history, let's say.
No, exactly.
So yes, and of course you can follow us on our socials. We are at Davis on Instagram. You can also follow me on Instagram at Louis on Air, Twitter Louis on the Air. Check out Lit Lab London for the science communication stuff I do, because I am a science communicator apparently. And Zach, do you have anything that you want to plug?
Yes, I'm part of a campaign to help promote and generate clean energy in the UK. Using hot drinks, because everyone knows just how much tea we drink here in the UK. So you can follow us on all socials at T_WATT. That's T-Watt.
Lovely.
Because we're generating wattage, because that's the unit of power. I feel like I had to over-explain that joke, which means it's probably not a good joke.
Do you know there's a Montreal metro station called Atwater, but if you get rid of the A at the front, it makes a different word, which I'm sure has nothing to do with your T-Watt scheme.
No. We're very much a British institution at this point. And speaking of British institutions...
Coming up next is presumably another podcast. Goodbye.